Remember, you can also be part of our discussion today by tweeting us at Recourse or calling our studio line on 011 714 5497 or 5498. Alternatively, you can email us or email your thoughts to rightsandrecourse@sabc.co.za. In spite of a woman's right to make sexual and reproductive choices as endorsed in various human rights charters and conventions, women living with HIV and AIDS continue to encounter discriminatory attitudes from healthcare institutions about childbearing choices. Cases of coerced sterilization of women who are HIV positive are on the rise. In Southern Africa, specific cases have been reported in South Africa, Namibia, and elsewhere in Africa. Today on Rights and Recourse, we examine the current state of coerced sterilization and the perspective of various rights organizations. But before we get into our topic, let's have a look at this insert.
As we reflect on 21 March 1960, when police opened fire and killed 69 men, women, and children in a peaceful demonstration in Sharpeville, South Africa, against the apartheid pass laws, let us celebrate the fact that since that tragic day, the apartheid system in South Africa has been dismantled, and South Africa has made great efforts to ensure that never again will such an evil system as racial apartheid ever raise its ugly head in their country.
Speakers cautiously welcomed the progress achieved in the fight against racism, 5 decades after the adoption of the International Convention on the Elimination of All Forms of Racial Discrimination, warning that the world remained far from realizing universal peace and unbiased justice.
May Nelson Mandela's impassioned words forever ring in our ears. Never, never, and never again shall it be that this beautiful land will again experience the oppression of one by another. And may we, in the General Assembly of this United Nations, modify those words and make our own commitment and pledge. Never, never, and never again will our beautiful world continue to be scarred by racial hatred and intolerance of diversity and descend into chaos because of obduracy and intolerance.
Well, yes, we have made great progress in human rights in South Africa, but we still have some challenges. One of them is this issue of sterilization. Joining us on today's program, we are hoping to be joined by Ms. Chantal Kisson from the Human Rights Commission. And with me in the studio here in Johannesburg is Mr. Mbuyiselo Botha, Commissioner from the Gender Commission. And at our Durban studio, Ms. Thembiso Mthembu, Executive Director from Hair Rights, a non-profit organization based at the University of KwaZulu-Natal. And on the line from Durban too is Dr. Anne Strode, a legal expert from the University of KwaZulu-Natal. Ladies and gentlemen, good afternoon and welcome to Rights and Recourse.
Thank you.
Dr. Strode, let me start with you. Probably, what is your experience around this issue of coerced sterilization?
Well, I have been assisting the Her Rights Initiative, the non-profit organization that you spoke about, with trying to document and research this issue of coerced and forced sterilization. What we've been trying to do is really try and we'd heard many, over the years, we'd heard reports, anecdotal reports, that HIV-positive women are saying when they go to hospitals particularly to give birth, that they are coerced into being sterilized. So we wanted to try and really establish sort of evidence base to try and understand what was this practice, how was it happening, where was it happening, how were women actually experiencing it, as well as how was it impacting on women's lives. So in 2011 and 2012, we undertook a study in which we enrolled 27 women who'd all HIV positive and who all felt they'd either been coerced or forced into sterilization. And we documented all of their stories and published it so that we'd have a deeper understanding of their perceptions of this human rights abuse. After 2012, and we had some media sort of publicity and a media campaign around this issue, more women came forward. So to date, we've now documented 48 cases of women who said they either have been forced into sterilization, so in the sense that they did not have any opportunity to choose to be sterilized or not. They were perhaps told after the procedure. And then we have 38 cases of women who gave their consent. They did sign forms, but in very coercive circumstances, such as being in advanced labor or in great pain, or one woman had even collapsed on the floor in the bathroom when they brought forms to her and said, you need to be sterilized.
Did you bring the attention of the authorities to this study that you did?
Yes. So in 2012, when we had completed the study and we published it in 2 peer-reviewed journals, we actually met with Dr. Pillay and a number of other top officials from the Department of Health in Victoria, and we presented the study to them. And they said at that meeting that this was not the government's policy. There was no policy of sterilizing HIV-positive women, and they also agreed at that meeting, they were busy finalizing the national contraceptive guidelines, that they would in fact amend those guidelines to include a paragraph that specifically said you can never be sterilized for a discriminatory reason. But they conceded that this obviously, even though it's not a policy, it does appear to be some kind of practice. Where Her Rights Initiative and the department disagree is around what should we actually do, one, about going forward and making sure that this practice, that no more women are sterilized, and secondly, what do we do about women who have been sterilized? What sort of redress are they entitled to? Are they entitled to any compensation? Are they entitled to any assistance? And that's where there's been a stalemate, really, between Her Rights Initiative and the department.
We'll come to those. We'll come to the redress. What I wanted to know, is this prevalent in rural areas, or is this also prevalent in urban areas?
It is very difficult for us to estimate prevalence. Our study was never aimed at establishing how widespread the practice was. We really wanted to understand from HIV-positive women, why did they think when they went to hospital they were being forced into sterilization? So that's what we know. We are hoping, though, in April, the National AIDS Council will be releasing the results of the National Stigma Index. That has been a study which looks at HIV-related discrimination across the country. 10,000 people participated in that study, and one of the questions was, have you ever been forced or coerced into being sterilized? When those results are released, and we haven't seen those results yet, but when those are released in April, we are hoping that'll give us a better idea about prevalence, because it's a much bigger sample than we had in our study.
Well, Dr. Strode, well, thank you very much for your time. We'll probably keep you on the line, or we'll come back to you halfway through the program to talk about the redress and the recourse that should be taken in order for us to get to the bottom of this in South Africa. Thank you very much. Mr. Tembiso Mthembu, down in our Durban studios, what is your experience?
I work here at Her Rights Initiative and work very closely with Dr. Strode, and we collaborated on the study that she was referring to. Basically, I first read about this in late 1990s. And didn't quite follow up on it, because there were other issues. But we got really concerned in mid-2000s when there was access to treatment and women were still reporting that they'd been forced or coerced into sterilizations. And in 2009, we had the opportunity of having an audience with the Minister for Health, the new Minister for Health in South Africa. We met him in a conference in Austria, and we registered the fact that there were reports of HIV-positive women who are being forced and coerced into sterilizations in South Africa. He was very concerned about what was happening, and he did state there and then that it was not government policy, and requested that we produce evidence, because he wouldn't act on the basis of anecdotes, so he wanted evidence. And that's the point where we decided that we'll collaborate with the University of KwaZulu-Natal to conduct a study which would develop such evidence that the minister was referring to. We got ethical clearance, approval to conduct the study in 4 provinces, but we were able to conduct it in 2 provinces, which were KwaZulu-Natal and Gauteng. And in the 2 provinces, we found 27 women who reported that they'd been forced and or coerced into being sterilized. And as Dr. Stode has reported, we then presented the findings to the Ministry of Health and also our recommendations. And our recommendations were really around law reform, because although there is a very strong legal framework in the form of the Sterilizations Act of 1998, we felt that there were loopholes in the Act. Otherwise, nurses and doctors would not be coercing and violating women's rights in this manner. So we felt that
I am aware,
there needed to be further protections.
My apologies for interrupting you, but I am aware that there is a Sterilization Act that says very clearly no person should be sterilized without express consent from that person. But the Sterilization Act is quiet when it comes to coerced sterilization. In other words, you are not read your rights, you are given a form to sign and you give consent. That is what we mean by coerced, if I'm not wrong.
Yeah, I mean, the Act is rather comprehensive. What we felt was gaps was in terms of implementation of the Act, in the sense that there are no guidelines, that explain as to what consent, is, and how do you go about soliciting and gaining that consent. Because, I mean, in our study, we learned that nurses and doctors tend to equate a signature to an informed consent. But that's not the case. Informed consent means that you understand the consequences, you understand the procedure, you are given other options, other than this particular, procedure, and you understand that it is permanent, and you choose. I mean, it's something that you choose yourself. It's not something that is offered to you. It's something that you choose yourself. We felt that understanding was lacking. All that they would go for is a woman's signature, and they would take a woman's signature as informed consent, but that's not necessarily the case.
So we'll come back to We'll come back to the other issues around this very issue. We'll pursue this issue. We'll also bring in, when we come back, Mr. Mbuyiselo Buerta from the Commission for Gender Equality, and also what did you get when you presented these facts to the Minister. If you'd like to join us, you can tweet us at Rights Recourse. We'll be back after the break.
A huge part of this African growth is technological innovation. Governments here are working hard to ensure that the continent's technology matches that of more advanced countries.
High-speed internet connectivity is regarded as a utility.
As the continent battles diseases like Ebola, social media becomes the preferred method to share information.
People on social media are some of the society's most influential.
To find out more, join me, Siphumelele Zondi, on Network every Sunday at 7:30 p.m. only on SABC News.
Welcome back. Let us hear from veteran human rights activist, advocate Navi Pillay, had to say about this day, human rights.
Veteran human rights campaigner Navi Pillay called on lawyers to fight against the abuse of the voiceless.
The government has to work with civil society. They have to fund NGOs who open up shelters, who have discussion groups, NGOs for men and women. At the moment, we're not a society that reflects the values of our constitution. We're a violent society. We need to improve on this.
Well, welcome back as we continue our discussion here on rights and recourse. So Tembi, so if you can hear me, I wonder if I can hear you, but if you can hear me, is that what have you've presented your facts to the minister, what happened then?
Yes, yeah, we presented our findings to the minister. We had a set of proposals. I mean, one was law reform, and we did not succeed on the law reform. As in they did not feel that there was a need for law reform at this stage. The other was a new policy development, because we felt that the law needed to be broken down into policy. But then they referred us to another policy formulation process that was ongoing at the time, which was around contraceptives, developing contraceptives guidelines. And we participated in that policy process, and we made sure that sterilizations were part of that process. So in that policy guideline, it is clearly stated that sterilization will not occur on the basis of one's HIV status, and also that informed consent will be sought before a sterilization is carried out. So we want...
So apparently you did approach, or are you still going to approach the Commission for Gender Equality on this issue?
Yes, we have approached, we have launched a formal complaint with the Commission on Gender Equality on this issue. And this is because the Ministry of Health has not been, helpful in as far as our other recommendations are concerned, particularly a recommendation around prevention of further sterilizations of HIV-positive women. They had promised us that they would issue a national circular that will go to all hospitals and healthcare professionals, instructing them, to halt or never to sterilize HIV-positive women on the basis of their HIV status. And we have not seen such a circular. They'd also promised that they would work with us in finding ways of finding compensation and or redress of women who are HIV sterilized.
So we'll get to the redress. Yeah. Let us get a view from Mr. Mbuyiselo Bueta from the Commission for Gender Equality. Mr. Bueta, you heard what Sir Tembiso is saying. You heard Dr. Anne Strode. Why is the Commission for Gender Equality waiting to be contacted when there is such a when these things are happening?
Well, I think let me start off by saying that we think that a very important thing we're talking about in this country, sterilization, especially without consent. But this is where the issue is. The Commission for Gender Equality, in fact, has is in the process of doing handling this complaint. So if you would appreciate that we will not make pronouncements as to whether before doing the actual investigation, because we don't want to be seen to be taking sides, to be impartial. So we would ideally have to wait until the complaint is formally lodged. I know where I'm sitting that this intention has not happened. I can say without any fear of contradiction that the Commission has not received a formal complaint, but were we to receive it, surely it's a very important thing for us to do, and we will not hesitate to in fact go ahead and do a proper investigation.
Well, during the week the activists wanted to present this complaint to you, and a member of your team did not arrive.
In fact, there's a miscommunication in that in around about Feb, Tembiso and probably her colleagues had sent an email to two of my colleagues, the chairperson and Commissioner Hicks, but that's where the matter ended. But also the difficulty is you're not going to be comfortable as the Commission to be part of the press briefing to receive a complainant. You would have to wait for due process so that when the actual investigation starts, you don't then have to deal with accusations, but that you were taking sides or you were not seen to be impartial. So just to put on record, I know that this has not happened. And look, I can say now, this afternoon, that the Commission is enthusiastic to get into the actual, complaint investigation.
I don't want us to make this an issue, the issue of the complaint, how the complaint was communicated, but quickly, Sir Tembiso, how did you communicate this matter to the Commission for Gender Equality?
In fact, the Commission for Gender Equality became aware of the issue a couple of years ago. We were kind of reluctant to submit a formal complaint to them a couple of years ago because our negotiations with the Department of Health were still ongoing. So there was awareness that we were doing this work in various provinces. For an example, in KwaZulu-Natal, for instance, the CGE assisted us in getting the audience with the local MEC for health. So they have been aware that this work is ongoing, and at a national level, they were also assisting us in terms of getting audience with the Portfolio Committee on Health.
So you're still going to lodge
I confirm.
You're still going to lodge this complaint with the Commission for Gender Equality.
I confirm that the complaint was formally launched with the Commission on Gender Equality last week after the media briefing. It wouldn't have come from Her Rights Initiative directly, but it came from our legal partners, the Women's Legal Center, and it's on record as has been launched to the Commission on Gender Equality.
I was a little bit confused doing my research on this issue. There are several role players. There's your organization, Her Rights. There is the Oxfam was also mentioned, and Women's Legal Center. Who plays what role? What is happening?
There are various partners who are involved in this process. Her Rights Initiative are leading research and advocacy, and the Women's Legal Center, our legal partners, our lawyers, so to speak. So they are the organization that will be taking forward any matters that relate to litigation. For an example, they are the organization that won us an out-of-court settlement on this very issue in Gauteng last year. And Oxfam, Great Britain, are the funders who are supporting this particular campaign.
The other question is, surely this thing, it's something that rights organizations like yourselves and the Human Rights Commission should be tackling and make our government aware as custodians of human rights in South Africa.
Oh no, for sure. Without delving too much, Tumila, into, I think it's a very important thing. It's about right base. It's about women. It's about who in the main are poor, and all of these things. I think for us as a commission, one will not even hesitate to get into investigation. I'm happy that Stembiso, acknowledges that the CG has played an important part. Created an environment for them to meet with the MEC, even at national level, as she says. So I can say that I think we will not for one moment, shy away from doing an investigation. And I said to you off air that this reminds one of the sad past we have had in this country, where black bodies in particular were used for experiments and all of these things that in fact degraded black men and women. So the commission, as the core of its business, is to ensure that there is justice, there's fairness. So we would not for one moment shy away when it dominates.
Well, what Mr. Bura is talking about today, Setembile, was we spoke about the fact that in the 70s, when the apartheid government started talking about family planning, these tests were done with black women, and we've given them so that they don't bear kids, and they discovered very late that they have been given these tablets to drink so that they don't bear kids.
Yeah, because they were poor, they were illiterate. So then the view was that they have no voice. What one would call their agency, women's agency, was never recognized. That's why then, post 1994, this democracy, I don't think for one moment that all of us can sit back and fold our arms when injustices, wherever they are committed to an dominion.
So tell me, I have to ask this question. I apologize for asking it, but I have to ask it. Are you yourself a victim of coerced sterilization?
No, I'm not.
You are just
but I happen to be concerned about the issue. It's the mandate of my organization. It's one of the priority issues that my organization is working on. And I want to refer to what Mboiselo is saying about the root, the political roots of this particular practice. Indeed, literature is telling us that it is in fact rooted in eugenics. And eugenics is trying to eliminate people of poor quality. So you limit reproduction of the socially undesirables. You see the same practice in the US where minority women, which are black African women, were sterilized in the 1950s, where all women who found themselves in prisons were sterilized. And in Roma, in Europe, you see the same with Roma women, that are being sterilized there as well. And indeed in apartheid South Africa, black women would be sterilized, so that we kept the growing numbers of black people, over white people. What remains my concern, what sort of makes me uncomfortable, is the fact that although in South Africa we transitioned to democracy, we left some horrors of apartheid, undiscussed, and unraveled, particularly the reproductive crimes that were happening to women, because in my view, this issue of forced sterilization belongs to apartheid South Africa, and it's now attaching itself to new minority women in post-apartheid South Africa. And had we dealt with it in the truth and reconciliation processes, for instance, we wouldn't be having to deal with it now. It belongs to apartheid, to the policies and laws, draconian policies and laws of apartheid, South Africa, and we're having to deal with it now because it didn't deal with it then, and I think it should stop.
Before we go to a break,
gross human rights violation, and it's against the Constitution.
So tell me, before we go to a break quickly, I just want to know, what are the implications of women who have been sterilized? I can't ask Mr. Boerta.
Legal implications.
What are the implications of women who have been sterilized?
Socially and psychosocially, all women in our study expressed, so deep feelings of shame. Our report is entitled, I feel like half of women all the time, because they felt that half of their womanhood, part of their womanhood has been taken away. And they were reporting that they are more comfortable to talk about their HIV status than they are comfortable talking about, the fact that they were infertile. You'd understand how infertility is treated in our communities and in our cultures. And some women, particularly rural women, were reporting that, issues like lobola would have been revoked because she's now not able to bear children.
So Jamie, we'll continue this discussion after the break. My apologies, we'll continue this discussion after the break. If you want to be part of us, please do tweet us on Rights Recourse and email us on SABC, Rights and Recourse, sabc.co.za. Don't go away. We'll be back after the break.
This former breadbasket of Africa, playing host to SADC leaders.
I feel humbled and yet greatly honored at being appointed the chairman of SADC.
When I was a student, Harvard was only my visible college, my formal classes. But I was also a student in an invisible college.
The outbreak in West Africa is the world's deadliest to date. It's centered on Guinea, Liberia, and Sierra Leone, with cases also reported in Nigeria.
Catch news at 8, 7 days a week. Be informed.
Wake up with the breakfast show that is jam-packed with leading headlines.
Neither the American nor Cuban people are well served by a rigid policy that's rooted in events that took place before most of us were born.
Once-in-a-lifetime interviews.
Everybody was talking about Rolene Strauss and her chances of winning the Miss World pageant. Well, she did. She won it. But what does that mean for South Africa? Because we've lost our Miss South Africa to the world. I'll tell you what's happened now. We have a brand new Miss South Africa. Well done.
Thank you so much.
This is a very different interview. I mean,
Definitely.
I've never done this type of thing before.
Exactly.
In fact, no one's done it in the last 40 years.
Yes.
Now you are Miss South Africa. So big congratulations to you.
Thank you so much.
Sports and weather updates.
And South Africa's captains lead the way on day one of the first test against the Windies. I'm looking there at PTA and Dile and I see it's very wet. Good morning.
Well, don't shoot the messenger, Valen. Well, I'm just giving you the information.
Music.
There's also one of your members that passed away, which was just so sad. Lihle Mbanjwa.
It's been very difficult for the choir, but we soldier on. We know that's what she would want us to do. So these next 3 shows that we're going to be doing are dedicated to her.
And the lighter things in life.
Morning Live has such a calming effect on me. I watch for about 20 to 30 minutes and then I fall into a deep sleep. I'm not sure what we take. Is it a compliment or are we so boring that we're putting back to sleep?
It's a bit of both.
Wake up with Morning Live, daily at 6 a.m. only on the SABC News Channel.
Welcome back to Rights and Recourse as we discuss coerced sterilization or forced sterilization. There's a difference between the two. Forced is you are not being asked for permission, and coerced means you are being given a form to sign, not being told what are you signing for. Therefore, Mr. Buerta, these are really taking away, Satembiso's last answer there, if you picked it up, is in our culture, if a woman cannot bear children, that woman cannot get married, because people get married so that they can have children.
Yeah, and these are things that the Commission is seized with. These are practices, your ukutwala, your lobola, and all of them, the Commission is seized with that. You see, the guide for the Commission is, what does the Constitution say? In whose interest are these things done? So I want to say, whilst we talk about this, that South Africans must in fact ensure that we make use of the Commission. We have 9 offices throughout the country. Ensure that these complaints, there's free legal assistance from the Commission, so that South Africans know that there is a body created by the Constitution to ensure that each and every South African is given his or her right, especially on matters relating to gender. So I'm just saying that all of those cultural practices that we know are not amenable, if you like, or in conflict or contrary to the spirit and the letter of the Constitution. We would like to ask South Africans, phone the Commission, go to the Commission, 9 provinces. The Commission is ready to say, we will investigate and we will take proper remedial work.
In a report by Dr. Anne Stroud, she says that in South Africa, apparently there are 48 documented cases where HIV-positive women were sterilized without their consent and coerced into signing consent forms for sterilization. Is the Gender for Equality, the Commission for Gender Equality, going to do a thorough research on this thing, thorough investigation, and come up with tangible things that can be done immediately?
Oh, for sure. As I said to Stembiso and to you, Tumila, as soon as the Commission gets a report, our legal department is awaiting and then make sure that we will do an unbiased, in-depth investigation, because that's what we exist to do as a Commission. But the point that one needs to make is that we think as a Commission, and I'm talking about broad strokes or broad principles, which are that anything that we know is against the Constitution must be investigated, especially those that deals with gender or injustices committed against women in this country.
Earlier, Satembiso, I did ask Mr. Buerta here with me in the studio, why are you taking your complaint to the Gender Commission instead of taking a class action against government or against the state or against the Department of Health?
We are applying different approaches to addressing this problem, and litigation is one level. And a complaint to the CGE is what we see as, advocacy-related redress. There was a case which had not prescribed, which was taken to court last year, and the department decided to negotiate out of court. Of the 48 cases, there are 21 new cases which were discovered in 2014. And of the 21 cases, at least 5 of them will be hitting the South African courts before the end of the year. And the rest of the cases are prescribed, and working with our legal partners to see whether we can launch a class action with the Equality Court, for instance. We also are commissioning a legal opinion to try and establish whether prescription in fact does apply in such cases, because these are human rights violations. They are not just mere medical negligence cases. And if we succeed in that regard, we'll then be launching class action on behalf of all 48 women. And we intend not to stop in remedies that are available in the country. When we exploit all remedies that are available in the country, we intend to go outside the country, look at what is available at a regional SADC level, at the AU level, but also at the international level, because we want to get to the bottom of this. We want the practice to stop, but we also want women to be compensated. We want redress for all these women who are forced into sterilizations.
You said earlier that there was a case in Gauteng where the department had to pay damages to a woman. You see that case as a precedent, isn't it?
It is a precedent. It was for the first time on earth where governments took responsibility for sterilizing a woman living with HIV without her consent. And it has to be said that they did not just cover damages to the women, they also covered legal cost for our legal partners. And in that manner, the government was saying we are taking responsibility for this. But what disappointed us, because in the court papers, we're suing all healthcare workers that had played a part in getting these women sterilized. From someone who took consent, the anesthetist, the doctor, the surgeon who performed the sterilization. We did not hear of disciplinary measures against these healthcare professionals, because as much as we want redress, we also want prevention. And we think prevention will come in part by disciplining and making sure that healthcare workers are doing what they are paid for. They use medical instruments to save women's lives as opposed to using medical instruments to violate women's bodies.
Thank you very much. I just want to go back to that, Mr. Botha, the fact that she's raised all of the other people down the value chain. Are these health practitioners aware that they should have consent from the women before they sterilize her?
It could be that they are aware, but one could be either because you may have yourself as a health practitioner be maybe someone who feels morally revolted about someone who's HIV, and you arbitrarily take their rights away. Or it could be that someone says, or they argue without even articulating their views, that this is for them immoral to have HIV, and as a result they would do things that may be illegal, or things that would be would ensure that the state gets into into trouble because there would be litigation. So I'm just saying that there are a number of factors here at play. That is why it's important for us maybe to also say that your healthcare workers, there's need for education, there's need for people to be conscientized that you can't post-apartheid 1994. There are surely certain things that you can't do on the basis that you'll go scot-free. We should know as South Africans that there are laws in this country, and those that flout these laws will in fact have to meet the might of the law.
We have a case presently before the Health Professional Council of South Africa that involves a very high-profile doctor who actually was involved in developing these kind of things for the apartheid government. Should we then, after all of your investigation and all the other court cases, see the report being handed over to the Health Professional Council of South Africa?
I know the case you are referring to. I think it's going to be important for us, as a commission, to see what is our role in other than maybe investigation. But we do have, the powers of the commission. How do we exercise them? But as I said earlier on, it's important for South Africans to know that we are ready, available, prepared to actually get our hands dirty in all of these investigations. It doesn't matter who it is against, but the principle is that if the laws are flouted, CGE is ready and able to do proper, in-depth investigations.
Satembi, so in your interaction with various people who have gone through this coerced sterilization or forced sterilization, what do they say? Why do the health professionals continue to do this? Why do they do it?
The main reason that is given to women for sterilization is the fact that they have HIV. You are HIV positive, you should not have been pregnant in the first place, you are going to die, we don't want you to leave orphans, you are here with yet another pregnancy, so we're going to sterilize you. And as Dr. Stout was saying, 10 out of the 48 cases that we have, 10 women actually did not know that they'd been sterilized until much later, when they were trying to conceive again. So it's either you get told or you do not get told that you would be sterilized. And the reason behind all of this is that women have, HIV. So they are targeted in prevention of mother-to-child transmission programs. And what we also discovered in our study was that because we thought that women would be targeted when they have C-section births, where they have an operation to give birth. But we also learned that even in instances where women would give natural birth, they will still be taken to a theater specifically for sterilizations. And I want to go back as to why we approached the CGE. And Boisole has touched, on it. We approached them because of the constitutional powers and duties which they have. But we also approach them because this is a gender issue, because there are men and women living with HIV in this country, but we have not heard of men living with HIV who are forced and or coerced into sterilizations. It's only, women. And we're hoping that the CGE's investigation is going to also highlight the fact, because it's an act of gender discrimination. And indeed, in relation to the healthcare professionals, we intend to lodge a complaint with them as well as DENOSA. We reached out to the International Federation of Gynecologists and Obstetricians, and they've issued statements and guidelines in our favor, stating clearly that under no circumstances whatsoever that gynecologists should perform this procedure on HIV positive women. And we're hoping to take advantage of that to complain to the medical professionals councils and the women's and the nurses associations against the healthcare professionals who are doing this. We might even consider criminal proceedings against it.
How long has this battle been going on?
As I said, I first read about it in 1998, which means has been going on for a very long time. But in our research, we have cases from 1996 up to 2014. So it has been going on for a very long time, and it has not stopped because of HIV medication. It continues to happen, and we can be certain that if we go back to the communities now, we'll find HIV positive men who would have been sterilized in 2015.
Well, we'll continue our discussion with Mr. Mbuyiselo Botha from the Commission for Gender Equality and Ms. Setembele Mthembu down in Durban from Hair Rights, and we'll be looking at all other issues before we go to talk about what recourse they have. We have touched on recourse, but we'll come back to that. Don't go away. If you want to be part of us, you can tweet us at Rights and Recourse or email us at rightsandrecourse@sabc.co.za. Stay with us. Welcome back to Rights and Recourse to discuss this issue of forced sterilization or coerced sterilization. Both of you, Mr. Botha and Setembele, can respond to this question. There was a case widely reported of a statement that came out of the KwaZulu-Natal Health Department that students who are going to India must be sterilized because they don't know what happens when the kids go there. And I didn't hear anything from the Commission for Gender Equality.
Well, there was something from the Commission and something to the effect that we would want to engage the MEC and to find out was the concerned people's rights were not violated. I know for the fact that I can confidently say that there was an engagement from our office to say that can we look at the things I've mentioned. You can't do these things. However well-meaning it could be that the state money involved, there are all other permutations to me. But it's important for this very critical point, which is consent, and not just consent but informed consent. So I'm just saying to you that I know that there were these engagements to say that as a commission we would be concerned, would be worried if all of these things were going on without a proper, thorough consent to those that are involved.
What was your reaction, Satembi, when the MEC in KwaZulu-Natal made that statement?
I was shocked. I didn't expect it in democratic South Africa, but then as forced sterilizations belong to like a broader, sort of a discourse around reproduction of the poor. The fact that, there seems to be attitudes around poor people having children. There's a new theory called neo-Malthusian, which is a belief, like a theory, a belief that hyper-reproduction leads to poverty. But we believe, social scientists, as development professionals, we believe that, actually poverty will lead to people reproducing more. So the Malthusian school will then say, because reproduction leads to poverty, hamper reproduction of the poor and the feeble-minded, then you would be addressing poverty in that manner. But then the other school would say, well, address poverty, because if you address poverty, people will reproduce less. So that's where it's coming from. And I'm worried in my current, sort of academic life. I'm looking at the politics of contraceptives in post-apartheid South Africa, because I think we have not moved from what we were doing in the past. We still pretty much do it in as far as regulating fertility, particularly fertility of poor women in this country. And I have problems and issues with that. Issues of women's autonomy.
I heard you earlier talking about my apology for interrupting you, but I heard you earlier talking about approaching the African Union and other stakeholders in Africa. Are you helping people, for instance, in Namibia and Kenya around these issues?
By association, I suppose I facilitated the very first meeting of HIV positive women in Namibia, where forced sterilizations was identified as an issue. And I'm one of the researchers who were on the ground in Namibia, gathering evidence that led to litigation, which was settled in 2014. I was not involved with the research in Kenya as such, but I'm involved, with supporting litigation that is going on there, and I think it's because of my, I suppose, professional associations more than anything, really.
Mr. Buta, recently the minister had a 2-day conference with the medical legal people, looking at all claims that are brought against hospitals, against government, in botched operations. And now Setembile is talking about bringing a whole lot of other cases against the department.
Well, I've heard that the cases you are referring to where the minister has raised concerns, but I think also it's important that all of us to find ways of how do we work together, both private, public institutions to either support each other or get involved in some sort of advocacy work. So I know that the minister is concerned from that point of view, and there's a lot of engagements going on. Well, like as I said, our mandate is very clear, and it's that of the investigative powers and also, in some instances, litigating.
So please, I apologize for my ignorance. Can sterilization be reversed?
In some instances, it can be reversed. I suppose this brings us to the question of recourse, what women are asking for. I mean, obviously, there isn't anything that can compensate women for what happened to them. It's deeply traumatic, and it's the worst form of human rights violation. So women are asking for different things depending on where they are in their lives. I mean, some women are asking for reversals. Depending on how it was done, it is possible to reverse a sterilization, although it is hard. Some women are asking to be assisted so that they are able to conceive in alternative ways, so accessing IVFs. And some women are saying, I do not want to see a theater, ever again. I'm happy with my situation as it is, but I actually want someone to explain to me as to what exactly happened, to my tubes. Were they cut? Were they tight? Were they bent? What happened? And some women are merely saying,
so when
I
we
want
come
an
back,
apology.
we'll follow up on what you have been saying, and we'll look at more recourse for women who have been done this injustice to them. Don't go away. We'll be back after the break.
I would say there's no supplements or minerals, something that you can take will completely prevent cancer.
Although vitamins help the body produce and use energy, they do not provide energy themselves because they don't contain calories. Supplements also cannot be used to replace foods or make up for poor dietary habits.
Cases in Liberia are currently doubling every 15 to 20 days, and those in Sierra Leone and Guinea are doubling every 30 to 40 days.
Hi, I'm Dr. Sello Mutau. Watch Health Talk every Saturday on SABC News.
Eskom could miss a deadline for a crucial step towards turning on the Medupi power station. But the power utility says it will probably meet the December the 24th deadline.
We're looking good. We've come through 3 days, obviously, of load shedding, which has unfortunately been necessary, but it's been useful to have built up our reserves for the coming week.
Shares of private hospital group Netcare jumped up today and closed on a high after the company reported increased annual profits.
The hospital group is also taking steps to aggressively reduce its dependence on Eskom due to increasing power outages and rising costs.
We'll be reducing our energy needs by some 35% over the next 10 years, and our cumulative savings of our forecast electricity bill will be in the region of R1 billion. So we're doing something very constructive about the challenges we're facing at the moment.
That's Business News, weekdays at 6 p.m. on SABC News.
Welcome back to Rise and Recourse as we discuss the issue of coerced or forced sterilization. There is a big difference between the two. I just want to say at this stage, yes, we did ask the Department of National Health to send us a representative to discuss this issue with us. They didn't come back to us, but if the case, that's why we have been looking at newspaper reports that have been having records where they are on record saying they don't approve of this, and we are happy with those comments. So tell me so quickly, in 2016, I understand the World AIDS Conference is coming back to South Africa. Are you going to make this an issue at that conference?
If we get the opportunity to do so, we will. But we try, by all means, to make sure that this issue is regionalized, as in it gets into the regional women's agenda, but also that it is, spoken about and discussed at international level. At international level, I mean, everyone, all UN agencies and other organizations are talking about the post-2015 development agenda, and we're trying to infuse this issue onto that agenda as well. And as I mentioned, we are trying to also infuse this issue at the AU level as well. because most of the women who are sterilized and are living with HIV are in fact African women, and African governments have signed declarations, in particular Article 14 of the AU Women's Protocol, does speak about protecting and respecting the rights, sexual and reproductive rights of women.
Mr. Buta, how long would it take the Commission for Gender Equality to investigate this thing?
It depends on the nature of the investigation or the volume, but I think that it would not stretch something more than 3 months, and I stand to be corrected from the legal department, but I think that any other complaint, what the Commission seeks to do is to respond to it speedily, quickly, so that justice delayed is justice denied. So we don't want to deny justice.
Besides doing the probe and producing a report, what else? How can the Commission help those women who would probably want the sterilization to be reversed?
Well, the issue of education, but also involving other stakeholders. I mean, talking sometimes quietly with the Department of Health and then, other, as I said, other entities, other institutions. Because our work as a Commission is to ensure that things, sometimes they don't even have to go to the extent of litigation. Education is one of the core, business of the CGE and research. So we do all of these things mindful of the fact that we do them with communities. So that's why I cannot overemphasize the importance of South Africans making use of the services available at the Commission for Gender Equality throughout the country.
Were you in contact with, obviously you will be in contact with organizations such as Hair Rights, and also look through the research that's been done by Dr. Anne Strode?
For sure. I think, like I said earlier on, our legal department, research department, a lot of interaction and would be happening, because already, as Tembis had said, that there were some, moves, there was some engagement. So we're sitting here waiting. I think Commissioner Shozi, the chairperson, and Commissioner Hicks have been, in contact with the organization. So I think it's work in progress, and our view is that investigations, as soon as we get the report, will happen.
Well, Mr. Buta and Mr. Tembi Sudan in Durban, thank you very much for a riveting discussion on this point. We have come to the end of our program for today. This has been Rights and Recourse. This program is repeated at 10 tonight and at 5 tomorrow morning. Thank you to our guests and good afternoon.
We live in a digital era, and the number of Africans with mobile phones is rapidly increasing.
Twitter use is predominantly being done on smartphones. This is a very African phenomenon.
Here, there are constantly new innovative ways to make the internet more affordable. With that, we're seeing protests against governments proposing methods to limit access. On Network, we give you information about all of this. We also have new computers, games, and robots.
Join Siphumelele Zondi on Network every Sunday at 19:30 CAT.